Everybody already knows about Violet Evergarden and how devastating and sad its concept and story are. It introduces Violet as she searches for the meaning of what Gilbert said before he died. Quote unquote, I love you. She is unable to fully understand human emotions as she was a child soldier and a skilled one at that. So prepare your tissues and enjoy this anime recap of Violet Evergarden. Violet is a soldier in the Leyden Shoplift Army, who served under Major Gilbert Bougainvillea, who she was utterly devoted to. Violet, who rests in a hospital for at least 120 days, got injured after a mission, resulting in the loss of her arms, which must be replaced with a prosthesis. Colonel Hodgins, Gilbert's old acquaintance, arrives to pick up Violet. He explains to Violet that the battle they were fighting was already won, and peace prevailed. But he refuses to tell her what happened to Gilbert. They travel to Leyden, where Gilbert has already made arrangements for Violet to be adopted by the Evergarden family. Violet, on the other hand, struggles to adjust to civilian life due to her military training. Afterwards, Hodgins chooses to introduce Violet to his business, the CH Postal Company, which acts as a private mail and ghostwriting service and hires her as a postal worker. She then sees one of the ghostwriting department's auto memory dolls compose a letter for an uneducated guy who wants to tell someone he loves them. Also, at that moment, Violet recalls that Gilbert's final words to her were, I love you. Violet requests Hodgins to let her work in the ghostwriting department because she wants to learn the meaning of those words. Hodgins grants Violet's request even though she is not an auto memory doll, impressed that she has now demonstrated the ability to act independently rather than being told what to do. Violet enters the ghostwriting department and meets its members, including veteran Cattleya and newcomers Erica and Iris. Violet begins her training as an auto memory doll, guided by Cattleya, and soon learns how to type. Violet, despite her technical skill, is nonetheless unable to grasp emotions. This comes to a head when she offers to compose a love letter, which angers both the receiver and the client. Erica then confronts Violet about her intentions for becoming a doll, but she relents when Violet explains that she wants to discover the meaning of the words I love you. Iris suggests that Hodgins should fire Violet, but Erica comes to her defense, partly motivated due to her own insecurities about being a proper doll. Ultimately, Hodgins chose not to dismiss Violet and offers her a new uniform, as well as the brooch Gilbert had given Violet, which Hodgins recovered from a black market. Violet is happy that the brooch has been returned and has agreed to attend to a doll training school. That night, Hodgins tells Cattleya that he used to be friends with Gilbert and mentions that Gilbert is never coming back. Violet visits the auto memory doll training school in order to become a true doll. There she meets and befriends a girl named Luculia Marlborough. The following day, Violet and Luculia are tasked with practicing their ghostwriting abilities on each other. However, Instructor Rodath is dissatisfied with the way Violet ghostwrote Luculia's letter, telling her that the letters are a tool for articulating a person's emotions and that the letter she ghostwrote was unacceptable. Luculia took Violet to her favorite spot, atop a bell tower, to show her the view. When it's revealed that Luculia's brother was injured during the war and is now a drunkard, Violet, on the other hand, fails to pass the class, whilst Luculia passes with flying colors. Luculia approaches Violet again and offers to ghostwrite a letter for Gilbert, but Violet is unable to find the words she wants to convey. Luculia then tells Violet about her parents' death during the war, and now her brother feels terrible for failing to defend them. She wants to tell her brother she's delighted he's alive and at home, but she can't find the words. Violet, moved by Luculia's comments, writes a brief and concise letter that effectively expresses Luculia's thoughts to her loving elder brother. After seeing the letter, Instructor Rodath permits Violet to graduate, and Luculia guides her older brother to the top of the bell tower to enjoy the view like they did as children. Iris receives a personal ghostwriting request from her hometown, but unfortunately injures her hand. As a result, Violet is sent along to aid her with her writing. When Iris arrives, she is greeted by her parents, and her mother admits that she was the one who issued the request to get Iris back to celebrate her birthday. However, Iris is irritated when her mother discloses that she intends to use the party to locate a spouse for her. Iris particularly requested that Violet shouldn't send party invites to a man named Emmon Snow, but Violet does so anyway. When Emmon arrives at the party, Iris flees to her room, furious. Violet then speaks with Iris to discover what's wrong, and Iris informs her that Emmon was her childhood crush, but he rejected her confession. Emmon's pain caused by rejection drove her to abandon her homeland to become a doll. This makes Violet understand that a confession of love like Gilbert's must have taken a lot of guts. Violet then assists Iris in writing apologetic letters to all of the party guests, including her parents. Iris' parents are moved by the letter, and allowed her to continue working as a doll. On the trip back to Leyden, Iris informs Violet that her parents called her after the flower on the same name, since she was born while they were in full bloom. Violet had a flashback, recalling that Gilbert named her after the flower of the same name. Violet is sent to the kingdom of Drossel by the military to write a public love letter for its young princess, Charlotte, to Damien, the prince of the neighboring kingdom of Flugel. Violet's task is critical, since Drossel and Flugel were previously enemies in the war and are arranging the marriage to solidify the conditions of the peace agreement. Despite Princess Charlotte's anxiety over the wedding, Violet writes the love letter and Prince Damien responds with a letter. But Princess Charlotte appears dissatisfied. Princess Charlotte later tells Violet that she met and fell in love with Prince Damien when she first met him, because he treated her like a person, not a possible wife or a simple queen consort. Regardless, she is doubtful whether Prince Damien reciprocates her feelings, as the letter he returned showed no emotion. Then an idea occurred to Violet to create an arrangement with the help of Cattleya, to make Princess Charlotte and Prince Damien send their own letters to each other. This sparks a heated yet passionate conversation between the two, captivating everyone in both kingdoms. The wedding goes forward as planned, and Violet and Cattleya, Prince Damien's doll, return to Leyden with Cattleya noticing Violet happy. She meets Gilbert's brother, Dietfried, who is surprised at how she became a doll and reminds her that she has murdered numerous people, including many of his troops. Violet, along with a number of other dolls, arrives at the Shahar Observatory to assist the researchers in making copies of several rare books. Violet is partnered with Leon, a young scholar who first dislikes her and dolls in general. However, he is astonished by how swiftly she works and begins to soften when he realizes she is unconcerned with his history or upbringing as an orphan. He asks Violet to see Ali's comet, which occurs only every 200 years, and she accepts. While the two are stargazing, Leon talks about his father, who was also a scholar at the observatory, but had vanished on an expedition. His mother then left home to look for him and never returned, leaving Leon to despise the concept of love. Violet then informs Leon that she has no known blood relations but is totally committed to Gilbert. Leon understands Violet's devotion to Gilbert at this point. Violet then prepares to leave the next morning, now that her work is done. Leon bids his farewell and informs her that instead of waiting at the observatory for his parents to return, he will begin touring the world like Violet to find them. Leon does worry if he'll see Violet again once she goes. Violet travels to assist Oscar Webster, a famous playwright, in creating his next play. However, when she finally arrives, he is in a drunk recluse. Violet convinces Oscar to stop drinking while they work, and they began writing the play. The play is about Olive, a girl who uses her talent to call magical sprites to battle a beast, but in doing so, She sacrifices her ability and becomes separated from her home and her father. Violet goes intrigued about the story's ending, which Oscar has yet to decide. Violet then discovers a parasol, provoking a furious response from Oscar. He then discloses to Violet that he based Olive on his daughter, Olivia, who died of sickness, and that he's writing the play to cope with his sadness over her death. Violet then inspires Oscar with his idea of Olive using her magical parasol to fly home. Oscar accepts his daughter's death and praises Violet. Violet begins to feel guilty about those people she killed during the battle, and wonders how many happy endings she may have avoided. Violet returns to Leyden, hears from Mrs. Evergarden that Gilbert has died, and confronts Hodgins. He reveals that after their final mission, neither Gilbert nor his corpse could be found, but his dog tags were discovered, leading the army to believe he was killed. Violet, in denial about Gilbert's death, departs the post office in anguish. Violet went to the military headquarters to question Dietfried and about Gilbert's fate. He confirms his death. Violet, still in denial, travels to Gilbert's house and finds his grave. Back at the post office, Hodgins departs to look for Violet. Violet then recalls her time with Gilbert, which began when Dietfried moved her to his command as a child soldier. Despite his wish to raise Violet as a normal girl, Gilbert is ordered by his superiors to deploy her to the front lines because of her incredible combat abilities. Violet plays an important role in winning several key battles. Gilbert gave Violet her name, trained her to read and write, and finally brought her a brooch as a gift. Some months later, Gilbert's unit is assigned to launch an attack on the enemy's headquarters, the success of which may spell the end of the war. Gilbert's unit suffered terrible casualties during the assault, but they managed to seize the headquarters and notify the entire army to attack. However, when Gilbert transmits the signal, he is shot by enemy soldiers, which horrifies Violet to the core. Continuing Violet's flashback, she is determined to carry a wounded Gilbert to safety, but is shot and injured by a grenade in the process, resulting in the loss of both of her arms. Gilbert tells Violet to go without him, and then tells her that he loves her. But she doesn't understand what he said. Defeated, the opposing forces blast their own headquarters, and Gilbert's give his life to save Violet. Violet returns to the battlefield to look for Gilbert. Hodgins then appears and informs her that Gilbert was committed to taking care of her in case anything happened to him. Violet returns to the post office with Hodgins, but refuses to perform any more ghostwriting, which concerns her co-workers. Violet attempts to take her own life, but is unable to commit. After helping Roland deliver letters and reading a letter sent to her by Erica and Iris, Violet comes to realize that the act of receiving a letter can bring someone joy. She returns to work, starting with ghostwriting a letter for Spencer, Luculia's brother. Violet then returns to the post office and asks Hodgins if it's okay for someone like her to live on. Hodgins, in response, said that what she did during the war cannot be undone, but the same is true for all her good actions as an auto-memory doll. Violet arrives at a mansion where a 7-year-old girl named Anne lives with her wealthy but ill mother. Anne's mother has hired Violet for 7 days to write letters, but Anne has no idea what the letters are about or who they're for. In addition, Anne is both skeptical and fascinated by Violet, mistaking her for a real-life doll due to her prosthetic arms. Over the next week, Anne accepts Violet but is unable to handle being apart from her mother while the letters are written. Violet calms Anne down after her angry outburst and convinces her not to blame herself for her mother's illness. Violet finally leaves after writing the emotional letters, and her mother eventually passes away. Afterwards, Anne continues to receive letters from her mother sent by Violet, and finally grows up to create her own family. Back at the post office, Violet tells her coworkers that the letters will be sent to Anne on her successive birthdays for the next 50 years, and she becomes emotional at the prospect of little Anne having to live alone after her mother's sudden death. The CH Postal Company receives a doll request from the neighboring nation of Citrigal, but the country is in the midst of a civil war between warmongers and the moderates. The plea comes from a soldier fighting on the front lines, but Hodgins declines owing to the danger. Violet overheard and heads to Citrigal to locate the customer, Aiden Field. Aiden is fighting for the moderate faction, but the enemy destroys his squad and seriously injures him. Violet arrives by parachute and saves him. Aiden, believing he's been seriously injured, has Violet compose farewell letters to his parents and his childhood friend Maria, declaring his mutual love for her. Violet consoles Aiden in his last moments as he imagines himself being reunited with Maria. Violet delivers Aiden's letters to his parents and Maria. And despite their sadness over Aiden's death, they praise Violet for bringing his final letters to them. Afterwards, Violet immediately bursts into tears, apologizing to the entire family for failing to protect Aiden and assisting him to head home safely. Dietfried is ordered to protect a special envoy who will be heading to a conference to sign a peace treaty that would officially end the war. Meanwhile, a rebel anti-peace party commanded by General Merkelov intends to ambush the envoy in order to disrupt peace negotiations. Katleya and Benedict join the ambassador as they board a train toward Distery. Violet, returning from Citrigal, discovers several flames near the train. Violet chooses to accompany them for protection. Then she discovers that Katleya is on the train. However, the anti-peace rebels have already entered the train and will launch an attack when it leaves the station. Violet tries to fight back but is eventually restrained since she refuses to kill anyone. Dietfried saves Violet, but blames her for Gilbert's death, and tells her that she has no reason to live. Violet then responds to Gilbert's final command was for her to survive, and she regrets not being able to defend him. At that point, a rebel shoots a rifle grenade at Dietfried, but Violet deflects it with her prosthetic arms, which begin to fall apart from the exertion. Violet continues to protect Dietfried, even after losing one of her arms in the process. However, when the train reaches a bridge, General Merkelov reveals that it has been rigged to explode as a backup plan before jumping from the train. Violet and Benedict proceeded to remove the explosives, and Violet gives up her second arm in the process. With the envoy safe, the group proceeds to the peace negotiations, where Leidenschaftlift and Gadariki formally sign a peace deal to end the war. Upon returning to Leiden, a famous event known as the Air Show, in which planes are filled with letters and launch into the sky to rain down throughout the country, is being revived as a result of the peace. While Violet's co-workers are composing letters for submission, Katleya recommends that she sends one to Gilbert. Violet, however, is at a loss for words. Dietfried then invites her to see Gilbert's mother. She tells Violet that she is not to blame for her youngest son's death, and that he lives on in her heart, even if the memories are terrible to recall. As Violet leaves, Dietfried observes that she has been completely independent as a result of Gilbert's kind and unselfish devotion and instruction. Violet, now inspired, sends a letter to Gilbert in preparation for the air show, and in it, she tells Gilbert how much she's learned as an auto-memory doll and how she intends to continue living in the hopes of seeing him again and telling him that now she understands the words, "I love you," a wee bit better. Through this, she ultimately accepts Gilbert's death. Despite her desire to think he is still alive, the next day, Violet receives a fresh ghostwriting assignment and returns to work, presenting herself to her new client. And that's it for Violet Evergarden. And doing a recap of this anime never fails to bring me tears, even though I already know its story. But being able to understand and convey one's emotions is crucial to conform and to sympathize with other people. This heartwarming story is one of the reasons why people will always remember Violet's journey. But not to worry. as it also has 2 movies that were released in the year of 2022, and you can watch it for more tear-jerking moments. That is it for this recap. Hope you enjoyed the video and see you on the next one.